What the fuck did I just watch? Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Fresh from the Movies. And today, to round out the year, we're going to be talking about Damien Chazelle's Babylon. Now, I'm going to get this out of the way. I have not seen any other Damien Chazelle movies, such as La La Land, First Man, or basically Whiplash, though I actually do want to see Whiplash now. So I'm going in this as a first-time Damien Chazelle watcher, and to be perfectly honest, I did not expect this movie to be what I thought it was. Actually, I went in there thinking, Babylon, it's got Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie, I heard Tobey Maguire's in it. Oh, when I came out of this movie, I was not expecting what I thought I was expecting. In fact, I think the two people who were also in the theater with me weren't expecting it, because by the time we were getting close to the last third, they weren't there. So, I'm gonna give a heads up if you do decide to see this movie. The opening and a good chunk of this movie is very hedonistic. That's the best way I can say it. I'm not gonna tell you what it is that's hedonistic about it, but if you know what that word means, you know what you're expecting. But honestly, if you can wade through it, you're in for kind of a muddled... it's a good movie, but it's a muddled mess, to be honest. You've got a really star-studded cast that are just... There's way too many people to even name, but I'll go off of the main three. Though I do want to give two shout-outs to Giovanna Depo and Lee Jun Lee playing Sidney Palmer and Lady Faye Chen, who they don't really do much in the film. Well, they do have some parts of the film. I shouldn't say that. No. They do have bearing on the plot themselves, but they're not the main stars, though. Well, Lee Jun Lee doesn't really she's there, but she doesn't have like a major part when it comes to Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie, or Diego Calva. But Giovanna Depo, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing his name right, actually has his own subplot in the film. So I'm gonna give a brief summary of the plot before I go on to the three main characters, and I'll also get it out of the way now. Tobey Maguire, he may be the executive producer, but he doesn't really... He's not in the film that much. He's in it, like, right past the last half of the film. And oh my god, I gotta give the makeup crew some aesthetic. I had to actually ask my parents this question from a medical perspective. Mom, Dad, can I ask you something? If somebody puts ether in their alcohol, they're gonna look swollen in the eyes and yellow teeth, right? And they're like, oh yeah. I'm like, that would explain that look. Makeup department, you did a phenomenal job. Phenomenal. Okay, so the plot of the movie takes place over the span of 5 years in the silent film era of Hollywood, from 1927 to 1932. And then also the ending takes place in 1952, but the main part of the plot is within this 5-year span. And it's actually a transition of the silent era to the sound era during the roaring 20s of Hollywood. And it's actually a pretty interesting time. This was a very big, major change for film history in its own right. It was also still part of the, I want to say, the golden age of Hollywood, where there was still the studio systems. You had contracts. You had people who were doing multiple films at multiple times. And it's actually kind of interesting, though. I don't know how true Chazelle's view of the hedonism part of the decadence of Hollywood itself was at the time, but this is a guy who does have a passion for his craft, so I get the feeling that he does know what he's talking about, and it is kind of true. I mean, for God's sakes, if you look at stuff from like Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, or any other movie that has to do with like big time history in Hollywood, there were debaucherous parties, so it's not unsurprising, or it wouldn't be surprising that something like this would go on. So now I'm going to get on to the characters. We're going to start with Brad Pitt, playing the character of Jack Conrad, a sort of basically a leading man. He's like the top billed leading man of the time, and he's really good. Everybody knows him for who he is. He's a good guy. He has this one friend named George Munn, who's a film producer, played by Witness and while she was asleep, Lucas Haas. Who there's actually a funny joke with him and George, where George always strikes out with a lady, and Jack always has to like pull him out of it. They actually have a really interesting chemistry, and I love that, especially when George gets his head stuck in the toilet seat because he tries to drown himself. He's like, it didn't work with Claire, and Jack says, well, dude, she's a lesbian. I mean, you're going to have a hard time topping that. So, Jack's story is that of a man who's on top of the world, but slowly starts realizing that he starts noticing that things are not the same as when they once were. That he's kind of waning down. In fact, there's a part in the movie where he's talking to the character Eleanor St. John, played by Jean Smart, who does a very, very good job as a sensationalist journalist. Though I will say she does have a heart, unlike some sensationalists. She at least has, like some shades of gray to herself, and she's also a force in there. She's kind of like a pseudo narrator at times, when need be. But when Jack confronts her, she tells him, your star is fading. Like, it's not what it used to be. There's going to be somebody who's going to replace you. There's going to be somebody who's going to replace me, and then they'll get replaced. But remember, 50 years from now, and this is 1932, so we're talking like 1982, someone's going to watch his movies and feel like they knew him. And I'm quoting that directly from the movie. He will be immortalized on celluloid. And he has to accept that. But he can't. He can't accept that. Because at one point in the film, he's basically called in to bail out a production. He's not happy, but he sees everybody else around it. And this is from another film critic who's noted this, and I didn't note this. He notices all the people around him, and he says, but he notices that everybody around him that's working, they're all happy. They're all content with what they do. But he's not. And in the last scene that he has with Lady Fei Zhu, with Li Zhonli, we know in the beginning of the movie that they were close. Not like lovers, because remember, Fei happens to be a lesbian. I hate to use that as a character definition, but she doesn't really do much. But it's more of a, they're not really dating but anyway. So they're talking, and he says, I'm tired, and it's just not the same. And she and George were his only friends, his only true friends. Well, also Diego Calva's Manny, but I'm going to get to Manny in a little bit. And he handles it in a way that most struggling artists do. Now, I'm not going to spoil that, but if you know how artists take to their rejection or acceptance of fate, you know what I'm talking about. So now we're going to go on to the person who's been getting the most recognition for this, and that's Margot Robbie as Nellie Leroy. I have seen Margot Robbie in the past 10 years go from an actress on a canceled one-season show of Pan Am. That's how I knew her. I didn't know she was on a soap opera in Australia. To going into The Wolf of Wall Street with Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio. But now she's an international superstar. She's literally this powerhouse to work with. A powerhouse tour de force. And my God, she is fantastic. So the character of Nellie Leroy is this up and coming aspiring artist who we meet in the beginning. She's kind of a nobody. Actually, no, she is a nobody living in I want to say almost a pseudo DOS house, and she by chance happens to be picked to be in a movie to replace someone who a young actress who had OD'd, and she slowly but surely becomes this a very popular silent film star. Though unfortunately, as the film history and film genre go into, say, the talkies, into the sound films, she's struggling. For any actor at that time, it would have struggled, because now they have to do their voice. They have to do it all. They're not going to just have to use their movements. They actually now have to express this stuff. And she's struggling. She literally gets herself into gambling debts. She gets herself into drug addiction. And basically, she can't handle it. She's literally a toxic force on herself. It's somebody who needs just someone to control her, to like get her under control. In fact, at one point when they're trying to revitalize her image, she can't take it. She can't take it because at one point nobody's being kind to her on this one, which unfortunately is what Hollywood and the show business is. You know, you're not going to have people that are going to be blowing smoke up your ass all the time. There are going to be people who you'll feel on the highest of highs that you are happy that people love you, but then you're going to have people that just loathe you, and that will hurt. And Margot plays Nellie with such a force, with so many emotions and variedness to the state of the 5 years of her career, that you just are amazed with what she can do. And you look at her as a different actor. And honestly, like, this is when I say, when people say like, oh, we don't see movies anymore by a certain actor, like we don't get to see like a Tom Cruise movie anymore, or we're seeing like a Chris Pratt movie. No. Now we can actually say, I'm going to see a Margot Robbie movie, because that's the kind of actor she is. And that's how she plays Nellie. She plays Nellie as just this brash, unhinged, but emotionally vulnerable character. And that's what I love. That's what I love seeing from actors. I love seeing varied emotions. And just like any other Hollywood starlet that can't handle it, it gets to them. Now to the last of the main trio, Diego Calva as Manny Manuel Torres. Now, Manny starts off the film as basically an elephant wrangler. And, oh, believe me, if you watch the opening of the movie, be forewarned, that elephant does have some precedence to that part. Believe me, I was not expecting it. So he starts off as that, and then he ends up meeting Jack, who, out of the goodness of his heart, gives him some assistant jobs. In fact, he even helps save one of Jack's productions that he's in, and he slowly rises through the ranks of the studio systems. And we know early on that he wants to do this stuff. This is what he wants to do, and he wants to be part of something bigger. And in that, he is also a part of the ever-changing silent to sound films. And he becomes a director. He becomes managing other actors, but over time, this enthusiasm also leads to him having a loss in his, in his humbleness. Like, he literally, I shouldn't say humbleness, his compassion. There's a part where Manny is talking to Sidney Palmer, Giovanna Depo's character, who's basically a young jazz musician who's in a very big part of the, films that were focusing more on black actors. And at one point he gives Sidney a thing of, I want to say it's makeup, but it looks a lot like charcoal to darken his skin, because unfortunately, in that time, all the other actors around him had darker skin pigments than he did. Even though when you look at Sidney Palmer, he's very much like he definitely has a dark pigment to himself. But to the Southern audiences, the studio says, oh, no, he has to stand out. And you see Jovan upset that he has to do that. But you see this uncaringness coming from Diego as Manny. And to kind of end off Jovan's part with this, because they intersect, Sidney does the part for everybody else, but after he wipes off the charcoal or the makeup, he leaves it's the Paramount lot, I think. I know it's called Pinoscope, but it's really the Paramount lot, and he says, I'm never coming back again. He says to the security guard. And you know what? Good on him, because he had a bet. He lucked out. He had the glimpse of Hollywood. Now he wants out. Manny, on the other hand, he gets tangled up. Rising from Jack Crawford's assistant to a director to the head of the Pinoscope Studios. Now, he also ends up getting himself into a bunch of danger because of Nellie, when she gets herself into an $85,000 debt under an eccentric mob boss known as James McKay, played by Tobey Maguire. And in fact, he loses everything in the end. In the end, he loses. I'm not going to say what it is, because I've kind of given enough spoilers as it is. So I want you to go and see it for yourself, because Manny is the real protagonist of this movie. To be perfectly honest, when it comes to the main three, he's the protagonist of it. He's also kind of, I wouldn't say an audience proxy. I want to say he's an audience proxy, but he's not. And in the end, you see, he sees what his, I'm just going to say this, he sees what his contributions led to Hollywood, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. Now, what do I want to say about the movie itself? One thing I personally fucking loved was Justin Hurwitz's composition and music. Oh my freaking god. My three favorite tracks are Call Me Manny, Voodoo Mama, and the finale, which combines all those themes together. And oh my god, I fucking love it. I fucking love this movie so much. It's that, not even that movie, but the music. Like, at the end, I had the whole theater to myself. I was dancing to that finale. I was dancing my feet off. And oh my god, I fucking loved it. Oh, I like the other things I like about this movie are the historical aspects of it. I like the changing of the periods of Hollywood. I do like some of the franticness, but that's also one of its detriments. You know, I'll get to its detriments now. Its detriments are that it is very long. I did not expect it to be this long, and I didn't want to sit there checking the time. But considering nobody was there, and I did unfortunately have to use, I had to leave the theater for a few minutes, and I missed a tiny bit of stuff because I was on the other side of the building. This movie is 3 hours, 9 minutes long. Even longer than Avatar: The Way of Water, which is currently out right now. The thing is with the movies, that it's very long, and it could have been trimmed. And now I'm somebody who does not like trims at times. I do like seeing the full picture, because when you look at something like Apocalypse Now Redux, the redo cut, which had all the stuff that Coppola took out and added in, you see, yes, it's longer, but you see a lot more character motivations. You see a lot more things. You see a lot of things that sometimes would make a lot more sense there than it did in the main cut. Another thing is, it doesn't know sometimes how to slow down. This is a very hectic movie at times. There were times where I didn't even know where some things were going at that time. As the movie slowed down, it did, but it got easier. But in the beginning, you kind of really are there. Now, the funny thing, you kind of don't feel like you're in this headspace. You feel like you have to catch up with everything. The opening, I thought, was going to be the entire movie itself. I'm pretty sure it's a 20 to 30 minute intro at an executive's party. And funny enough, that's where all of our characters are. Minor and major are there. They're at this party, and their fates basically are there. And while they spread out, they're still connected in their own way. And that's what I love. And that's actually something I did like. That it just so happened that coincidentally they were all there, and they had either their time in the spotlight. Well, actually, no, they would get their time in the spotlight, but then it would sadly fade or just die. What else can I say about this movie? Really, if you have the time to go see it, I would definitely go. I would at least go during like the daytime, or if you go at night, make sure you don't have to get up early the next day or you have anything to do, because this is a long movie. Also, if you happen to do go at night and you're hungry, go to a theater that serves dinner or serves a meal, because I went to one, and because I didn't think it was going to be this long. And I had popcorn, I had soda, and you know what? I had the whole theater to myself, and I loved it. But if you do go like after lunch or anything like that, then it would be perfect for that. If I have to say anything else, I would say ignore the somewhat negative press that the film is getting. I do admit it has a lot of problems. It does have a lot of problems, especially with sometimes the hedonism does get very gratuitous, but I think that's what it's meant to do. Unless the only way I would know this is if I could ask Damien Chazelle himself. It's really just what was I saying? I would say don't. Oh wait, now I remember what I was gonna say. Don't listen to what the press says. I would say go see it for yourself and have your own opinion about it. Though I will say, if you are not a big time film lover or somebody who doesn't like long movies or like history movies in general, I would say you don't have to watch this. I would say I can't recommend that then, or at least I could recommend it for one watch. But if you fit in the categories of that, you love all this stuff, I would say go see it. I really would. And to be honest, it's upset. It's a little upsetting that it's made 5.9 at the time of this recording, $5.9 million at the box office on a $70 to $80 million budget, which did have a lot of factors, at least where I was, because we had a lot of cold weather, and we had frigidly cold weather. The holiday season, at the time of this recording, certain medical issues going on, and Avatar: Way of Water, which I still don't understand last I checked, it made $138 million. Now it's got a $1,083 million the returning profit at the box office. I mean, I'm eventually probably gonna go see Avatar as well, but I don't know. Hopefully that's good, because I am a big fan of James Cameron movies. But you know what, Babylon is one of those films for film lovers that you have to go see. And with that, I'm gonna end here. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all next time.